Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and welcome to this week's episode of The Knife Guy. Let me start this off because I know what the title and the thumbnail say, right? I know why you guys clicked on this video because this is a really interesting topic. I want to start off by saying this patent has not ended yet. I found, actually it was a Reddit thread from like 9 months ago where somebody asked this question, like, when does the patent on the cold steel Triad lock end? And it turns out, the consensus is, and I'm absolutely confirmed this to be true, that it's 2026. That's a big deal. I mean, I know that you know, there are some people who know this, but I feel like the vast majority of people don't know this. This is a big deal. Before we start talking about this, somebody brought up a really good point. Yeah, sometimes people have good points on Reddit. It's rare, but it does happen. Seriously, though, this is a good point. Knowingly infringing upon a patent is a very not okay thing to do. So while this is exciting, whether you are, you know, just sitting there considering designing your own knife, or you're somebody who is an OEM, right? Or you're a well-known knife maker, or whatever. If you start creating knives with the Triad lock right now and then just secretly hold on to them, that's not an okay thing to do. I'm pretty sure that that's illegal, and I don't want to you know, suggest that people do this, right? So I have to say this right off the bat. Don't do that. Do not do that. That is my official stance on that. Please don't do that. It's not a good idea. Okay. Anyways, I want to talk about this because this is really, really interesting. What's Knife Guy? If you're new, it's where I lay out a whole bunch of knives on the table and I just sort of talk, right? It's not a review. It's not unboxing. It's not a top 10. It's just almost a podcast style episode where I'm going to sit and talk. Not a lot of structure, right? But I want to consider this and the implications of the patent on arguably the most famous locking system of the last 20 years. That's a big, big deal. Right, so sit back, relax, get yourself a snack, a drink, because I'm going to ramble for a bit. Out on the table, we have some extremely strong locking systems. Most of them are Demco. We have, of course, the Demco Triad lock. If you didn't know, this lock was the first that was, like, in a major way, vastly superior to anything that anybody had ever seen on a folding knife. It was so comically superior to everything else. And it still is one of the very best locking systems in terms of durability, right? I did not realize that it had almost been 20 years, right, since it came out. Again, there are, I think, little things here or there and accuracies as far as like when patents end and what type of patent it is, right? So it's not an absolute certainty, I guess, is what I'm saying, that it'll end in 2026, but the general consensus is 2026, okay? But anyways, we have the Triad lock. We also have, and that's a Demco lock. Demco invented that. We have the Shark lock. Famous, right? This is the strength of the Triad lock, but made substantially easier to manipulate. I don't think anybody's going to argue that the Shark lock is just better, right? It's just better. We also have the Scorpion lock, another Demco lock that is ridiculously strong. Not nearly as popular, I think, for obvious reasons. It's a cool lock. Not nearly as easy or intuitive to manipulate, but it's cool, right? Cold Steel developed the Atlas lock as soon as, you know, Demco, I guess Demco and Cold Steel kind of parted ways. The Atlas lock does engage different. It's a little bit different, I think, but where they got the idea for the design, I think, is pretty obvious, right? But the ability to create a locking system of this strength and not infringe upon a current patent is there. I mean, Cold Steel did it. Here it is. It's the Atlas lock. We have the Super lock. Not as strong. It's the Sneck Super lock. Not as strong as any of the aforementioned locking systems, but it's still incredibly strong. And most people are going to agree that it's definitely in, like, you know, one of the top strength locking systems out there. And then we have the frame lock. That's not a very strong locking system, right? But in the case of the Sandstorm, just as another example of a strong lock, this is a combination of a few different things. We have a screw down LBS, which is preventing the lock bar from slipping over in the locked position now. but you can also add a second stop pin and screw that in. That's pretty strong. Is it as strong as the Triad lock? Very much doubt it, but definitely way stronger than your average frame lock, liner lock, or just your average pocket knife. A lot of big old chunky knives out here. There are lots of knives, many different sizes, that utilize the Cold Steel Triad lock. If you look at Cold Steel's library of knives from the past, they have put that thing on every shape imaginable. I was reviewing this knife. I actually said it in the review. And I carried it for a bit and I sat down to review it and I was like, why don't we see more super durable locking systems on budget knives? Not just the screw-in pin thing, but why don't we see, we got the Vision FG Super Lock, right? And then I started to think about all the knives that I would consider having like hyper advanced locking systems, right? Or locking systems that are far more durable than we typically see under $75. I was like, man, there's just not very much. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Because Cold Steel has like the light series. Like, why would you bother if you can get like a Cold Steel, whatever, light, and it's like ridiculously strong. They kind of have that part of the market cornered. And for a long time, the reason that Cold Steel has such a cult following, that one of the biggest jokes on this channel is that I imitate the guy like kicking in the wall like the Kool-Aid guy. Everybody's standing there having a conversation, and there's always some guy in the comments who's like, not as strong as my Cold Steel Triad lock, blah. Like it's special knowledge, like, oh, these poor peasants don't know about the Triad lock. They're all discussing this other knife as if it matters. Existing on the same planet of the Triad lock is essentially a death sentence. It doesn't matter. Your existence is meaningless because the Cold Steel Triad lock exists, as if we don't know, right? Or as if the knowledge of Cold Steel and the existence of the Triad lock is somehow special, secret knowledge that only the most seasoned of enthusiasts are blessed with knowing. Nope. Pretty much everybody knows about it, right? But cult following, I think a lot of it is the marketing. Holy crap. Have you ever seen the Cold Steel marketing? The Triad lock marketing? It's amazing. Oh my gosh. I hope all those pigs died of natural causes, honestly. I hope so. But my God, they do all sorts of crazy stuff to the Triad lock. Now, does anybody need this level of strength in a lock? No, but that doesn't matter. It's not what you're thinking about while there's a guy chopping a pig in half with a pocket knife. I'm kidding. It doesn't really... Hanging a bunch of weights off a pocket knife. Nobody stops to think like, well, what realistic scenario does this apply to? Like, what would I be using this knife for where this this level of strength and durability would mean something? And the answer is there are no situations like that. You literally have to use your knife like a cave person, but with a force that's 10 times past your natural abilities in order to apply the same force to your knife, right? You have to be a dumb, if you're like, I'm going to smash a rock and make smaller rocks today with my pocket knife. Like then, yeah, the Triad lock, definitely, right? I think what it comes down to is like people ultimately boil it down to a scenario where you are lost in the jungle or wherever. You're lost. Your helicopter crashed. You survived because, it's your fantasy. You survived, and all you have, you're in your tidy whities, and you got a Cold Steel, 8010, right? Well, of course, you're going to have to do some batoning because you need to start a fire, right? So anyways, the helicopter crashes, burns all your clothes away, except for your tidy whities, and you have your Cold Steel 8010, right? And we got to start a fire because it's the forest, and we need a fire for lots of reasons. There's a ton of other concerning things about this scenario, but let's just proceed with the batoning. Well, if you have a regular, feudal, weak, weenie town, baby, nothing gumball pocket knife, you're dead. In that scenario, that's how they'll describe it to you. You have died. You died in the jungle in your tidy whities because of your dumb knife that didn't have a Triad lock, right? But with the power of the Triad lock, you will be able to baton. You can strike the spine of the blade and the lock will not get disengaged. And the truth is that's actually true. Now, I don't know if Cold Steel, if their warranty will actually, let's say you do that with one of their knives. Let's say like I'm I'm lost in the jungle, and my helicopter crashed and burned all my clothes off, and I'm in my underwear and I'm batoning. And it breaks. I'm like, ah! Well, then I get rescued. And I'm like, the first thing I do when I'm getting back is I'm sending this knife in for warranty. Right? Will they honor that? I doubt it. I really doubt it, right? But many channels like Dutch Bushcraft Boys have proven that you can. I've heard of very few instances where the Triad lock will disengage from abuse. I think my stance has always been that every other part of the knife will break before that lock disengages, right? And I believe that to be true. I still think the best tool for talking about this at all. Like what we're doing is we're creating a ritual that summons the obnoxious fixed blade guys. You know, shoe body doo, here they come, the fixed blade guy, and the goat coming out of the water, but it's like an annoying fixed blade guy, and he's gonna sprint over and be like, "That's why I carry a fixed blade, because they're stronger." Yeah, all of us who like pocket knives, like most of us have fixed blades too. Like I don't know. I don't know. Thank you for the wisdom. Thank you. We didn't know. Nobody knew that. Thank goodness you were here. Goat person who came out of the water. But anyways, so I don't know if they warrant it or not, right? But they do. There are lots of channels that have done like extreme testing on this stuff. A lot of people ask me, why don't you test? Why don't you do more like extreme testing? I'm like, because it's all been done. Like 10 years ago. 15 years ago in the knife community on YouTube, it's all been done. Like this is all we know, right? Now it's still important to stress test a little bit, especially with a newer company if they haven't proven to be able, to create these locking systems consistently and safely, right? Because as you've seen on this channel, even some basic liner locks that everybody should have figured out right now, sometimes a little tiny bit of spine pressure can cause those things to disengage. And that's something that you need to know, because a normal, rational person using a pocket knife like a pocket knife could, in some situations, apply accidentally or unintentionally pressure to the spine. They disengage it, right? They spent $35 on a pocket knife on my recommendation, and then it slips and cuts them, and they go to the hospital and have to spend hundreds of dollars on stitches, right? Well, I don't like that. Do a little stretch. But I'm not going to do the extreme stuff. Because the answer to the end of that road is the curtains are not closed on that issue. The answer is Triad lock and a bunch of other surrounding locks, to the Triad lock, in the vicinity of the Triad lock. I doubt Andrew Demko has any plans to do anything major with the Triad lock through 2026. When in 2026, I honestly have no idea. Maybe early, maybe late, I'm not sure. I didn't actually look up the exact date, because the whole idea here is discussion. I doubt he has anything planned to do with it, but I don't know. I doubt Cold Steel plans to do anything new with it, because they have their Axis lock, and people clearly prefer the manipulation of it, right? So if the patent ends on the Triad lock, and then companies are allowed to create knives with the Triad lock, will they do it? Yeah, they absolutely will. Oh my God, they will. Companies would be idiotic to not be aware of this and seek to create new knives with this system. And it will be a good thing for everybody. Triad lock knives, if it's implemented correctly, which it does need to be implemented correctly, are extremely beneficial. They're safer. They're stronger, right? Not just for the responsible, knowledgeable people, but, for the cave people, too, who were like, my grandpa used a knife as a hammer and a screwdriver, and it held his golf clubs, and he pried open bomb shelters with it. He defeated a tank with his pocket knife. Well, okay, Grandpa probably just should have been using the appropriate tools, right? A lot of times the same people who say stuff like that will also tell you to use the right tool for the job. I find it hilariously ironic that pocket knives are viewed by a lot of these people as multi-tools. They're not. They're knives, right? But a Triad lock actually does allow certain blades with the right geometry, it allows them to be substantially more fortified. It doesn't solve the problem of people abusing knives and destroying the edge, right? You use your knife as something other than a cutting tool, and you very immediately stand to risk losing your edge. And now you're carrying around a knife-shaped object that is just bad at anything that you would use it for, including cutting. It's funny how quickly people arrive with this type of tool in their pocket, and the average person who's carrying a pocket knife is using it like this. And have you ever asked to see like a somebody who's not like deep in the knife world? Have you ever asked to look at their pocket knife? Look at it. Tip's gone, edge is dull. They're just carrying. It's just a thing. It's not a tool. It's nothing. It's just a blunt piece of metal that they've been used. It's not a very good pry bar. It's not a very good screwdriver, and it's not a very good knife now, right? So this has never been a debate. In my book, this is cut and dry. It's just wrong, right? Triad lock does allow the knife to be able to be used as a lot of this stuff. Again, don't test the warranty because it's probably not going to cover it. You can still physically use your knife for a lot of these things. In many cases, you have really thick geometry at the tip especially, and the pivot will not break. Right? At least not with natural human force. If you jam your blade into a surface and start banging on the handle with a sledgehammer, you're probably still going to do some damage. I don't know why you'd do that, but you could, right? It doesn't make the knife indestructible. It just makes it substantially more reliable in terms of lock strength and solidity. I think mostly, though, our end of the community, the enthusiast community, the people, but those of us who also take our knives out and use them, this is cool because it allows you to have a pocket knife that you absolutely, there is no reason, you're carrying a knife with like when I carry a knife with a shark lock, there is no part of me, while I'm using this, like when it's time to get the knife out and use it, no part of me that goes, I got to be careful, I don't want the lock to disengage. Not at all. With a lot of other systems, like the shark lock, the Triad lock, the scorpion lock, right? No problem. With pretty much every other system, I have at least a slight reservation, especially with plunge locks, right? Sometimes frame locks and liner locks. There's a lot of locking systems I'm like, I'm not going to do that with this knife. With these, right, the Triad lock, scorpion lock, shark lock, Atlas lock, trust all of them completely. Not going to disengage on you. That feeling is pretty nice. That's a good feeling. You feel like you've got a tool that you can absolutely rely on. In some situations, people will find themselves in situations where they actually don't have any choice but to use their knife. Kind of an oh crap situation, right? Well, be nice in that situation where you just have to use the tool to get out of whatever situation you're in. It's nice at least to know that you can depend on that lock. This is great and will be a very, very popular thing, especially with people who are on an extreme budget. When companies like Miguron or any number of companies who are making really, really great knives between $30 and $50, they have the ability to implement an ambidextrous, hyper, durable locking system on some of their products, whether it's big overbuilt burly stuff or just simple EDC knives. This is huge. I wonder, because the shark lock is essentially the Triad lock, but it operates on a coil spring and the trigger's on the back, right? That's the downfall of the downside of the Triad lock is that manipulating it requires you to, push that button and use it. It's kind of a two-handed operation, right? Now you can manipulate it with one hand. You can do this. I don't love doing that, right? I wonder what is stopping companies in the future, once the patent expires, obviously, don't start doing this before, because I am pretty sure it's illegal. I have to say that multiple times in this video. This video is not meant to be like, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. No, I mean, seriously, that's my honest, don't do that, right? I don't want anybody pointing the finger at me. For example, how a compression lock can be operated via, like the spine right here. It can also be, do I have a top line around here? Yeah. This Vosteed Croc. It's a button-operated compression lock. Right? They operate they lock up the same way. They operate slightly different. The shark lock is obviously meant to be, sorry, my wife's going to go out and close the door. You're going to hear the garage door open. But the shark lock is meant to be the Triad lock, but easier to operate, right? Once the Triad lock patent ends, will we see traditional Triad locks, and will we see hybrid Triad lock mixed with some other thing operation that makes it easier. A lot of people say, no, you won't see that because then that's the shark lock. Not necessarily, right? The Atlas lock exists. And if it were infringing upon the patent for the shark lock, then it would not exist. But it does exist. And it doesn't engage exactly the same way as a Triad lock or a shark lock, but it's obvious where they got the idea. So I think, this is my prediction, not only will we see the standard Triad lock, the way that it operates traditionally, on lots and lots and lots of pocket knives, and this will be a great thing, it'll be really cool, right? It's very exciting. I think we'll also see a variation of the Triad lock that operates in a different way, a more convenient way, much like the shark lock, but not exactly the same. I think absolutely. For example, the shark lock operates up here. What's stopping somebody from, once the patent ends, I'm going to keep saying it over and over again, from putting some sort of coil spring in there and having the operation of it be on the side, right? Or something else, right? Obviously, to not infringe on the patent for the shark lock, it would have to be quite a bit different. But a lot of how the shark lock engages is the same as the Triad lock, to my knowledge, right? So I don't know. I have no idea what it will turn into. But this is for certain. If the patent on the cold steel Triad lock absolutely, truly does end in 2026, it will change the shape of the knife world. It's going to. The budget knife world, the mid-range, and the high-end knife world will be dramatically different in terms of what is available to us, what people prefer buying. The standard of a pocket knife, cold steel themselves absolutely, in a lot of people's minds, changed the standard of what you should expect from your pocket knife, right? Now, people like me and a lot of people who think like me are like, yeah, it's really durable and that's cool, but like we shouldn't, just because the Triad lock exists, we shouldn't expect our knives to suddenly become jackhammers or be used that way, right? But some people absolutely believe it, right? And they think because the Triad lock exists, it proves that knives can be all sorts of different tools. I think that's poppycock. That's a load of hooey, as Charlie would say it. But it'll still be really cool, and I'm really excited about it, right? I was excited to read that information, and if you didn't know, like I said, I'm sure that other people know. But I know for certain the vast majority of you did not know that. So it's interesting. Something that everybody should be paying attention to, but not preemptively designing around. You should not be doing that, right? And again, I don't actually know that that's illegal. I just assume that it is. That kind of thing makes me nervous, So, but yeah, it'll be something to look forward to for sure. So, because I mean, like, when's the last time that a new model came out that was the Triad? Like, do they do that? Does the company who bought Cold Steel, do they develop new models and just implement the traditional Triad lock? If they do, it certainly doesn't seem to be a very, in-your-face kind of thing. I don't hear about it very much, right? I think Demco's pretty hard in on the shark lock, which I would be too. So, yeah, I don't know. Interesting. Let me know what you guys think, or if you have more information on this subject, anything that I didn't cover that you want to discuss, please do it down in the description. I'll try to remember to link just Triad lock knives in general down there, so if you're not familiar with it, then you can go take a look. But that's going to be it today. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.